That makes a whole lot of sense. A whole lot of sense. Anybody out there that wants to call in the show, yes, you can call into the show. The phone number is 347-308-8047. And I repeat, 347 is the area code. USA. For those of you overseas, it's 001-347-308-8047. Mr. Chapman, one of the questions that came in here from overseas was, if I can find it again, it appears that the recovery here in Germany is kind of being laid back and is in danger as firms and home buyers are cutting back even here in the effect of what's going on. And there's a slow economy in the United States. But here in Europe, we're getting more news than those. We're getting more news than those in the United States. What's the reason for all the fact that the Americans are not being told the truth up front? What's the real reason? Do you know?
Well, the real reason is the people who control the media, and they are members of the Illuminati, and they have controlled it for many years, and this is nothing new. America has always been shut off from news that they don't want the Americans to hear. They either just don't report it, or they distort it, or they change it. And the reason that in the last several months that business has got a bit better in Germany is because the value of the euro dropped 17% versus the dollar. So any products that you were selling that you had to compete with the United States, they were kind of priced out of the market. So German exporters did much better because there was no competition to speak of from the American-made products or services. Now, the euro went from, we'll say 119 back up to 133. Now, I just got my numbers in a few minutes ago, and the euro closed today at 127.27, but it was up 0.0073. And so the advantage that the German exporters had has been cut about in half. So instead of being 15% cheaper, they're now only 7.5% cheaper for goods of equal quality, we'll say. And so this recovery that they're talking about in Germany is going to be of short duration. And you can't raise taxes and have an austerity program at the same time, because you take too much of the buying power out of the hands of the consumer. And if the consumers can't consume more because the government's taking more money in the form of taxes and paying off debt, well, the money goes down a rat hole. So it's okay to have austerity, but don't increase taxes at the same time. It's dumb. And again, that's logical. But if you look at what's going on, it's not logical, because this just isn't happening. It's being made to happen. So always in the background, you got to think about that. It's like psychopolitical warfare, psy-war. It's a mind game. And most of the populace, as pointed out earlier in the program, doesn't understand, and they get brainwashed. And they believe what they hear on radio and television, no matter where they live. And so they don't say that they're against anything because they don't understand what's going on, or they're not told what's going on. The news coverage in Europe has always been better than in the United States. And I would say especially in France. They have a history of speaking out. The rest of Germany's okay. In fact, those facts and figures, part of them that I used in yesterday's issue, the forecaster came from Der Spiegel. which is a publication. I think they started in 1948. In English, it would be called The Mirror. And it's a pretty good publication. But I didn't see that in any publication in the United States.
From Rhoda, Spain, Mr. Chapman, there's a lot of talk in the Stars and Stripes and other papers that we're allowed to get here. And I pulled a newspaper headline off of a C-130 that came in from Washington, D.C., and a little article hit me. If you wouldn't mind, is there any way that you can explain to me why they're saying that the double dip inflation is coming, but nobody knows who or why?
Well, of course they know who or why. I mean, people who write those articles are not dumb. They're lying. Double dip. I mean, we never had a recovery. I mean, we had 5 quarters of an average growth of 3.25%, which was created by the expenditure of $2.5 trillion. That's not a very good return. And now they're coming up tomorrow with figures, the final figures on second quarter GDP, and they're going to come in with growth of about 1.3%, which is not very good. And incidentally, in the forecaster, we predicted 1.5%, so we're pretty close that is the figure. And I'm calling the third quarter, which we begin shortly. Let me see. No, this is the end of the third quarter. The third quarter I'm calling at a even to +1, and the fourth quarter even to -2. But it depends now on how quickly they put this quantitative easing into the economy. It takes time for money to get in there and do something. And unfortunately, a lot of the money is going into the financial markets, which has nothing to do with creating prosperity, that's for sure. And so the figures might be a little bit better than that toward the end of the year, but I don't think so. And I thought unemployment might get better, drop from 21.5% down to 20%, but I'm even becoming skeptical about that. I mean, these big companies won't hire at all. And the little companies, they don't have the wherewithal to do it, and they're scared to death. They're looking at the tax situation. Their taxes may go up 15% next year. There's a bill in the House and the Senate right now just put in, and our government wants to have a mandatory retirement plan financed through our bonds, retirement bonds. And that means that you're going to pay 3% of your salary to the federal government, and they're setting up a fund for you for when you retire. And, of course, the government is bankrupt. And the reason they're doing this is to finance their debt. That's what they're up to. And they want to take and exchange all the existing retirement plans, all of them. And they want to exchange them for these retirement bonds. And guaranteed annuities is what they're called. They also were talking about a 1% transaction tax on everything. I mean, these people are beyond insane.
And believe it or not, I have a question about the madness there on the tax cut. But before we go to there, we have Colorado Al in from Colorado. Radical Al, you're online. You have a question for Mr. Chapman.
Yes, Bob, this is an article from last November. Last November. It says that the gold that's in Fort Knox is the plated tungsten. So basically, we have nothing but garbage in Fort Knox if this thing is true.
We don't know because there hasn't been an audit. It could be. I don't know. One of the people who listens to this show retired almost a year ago from the military, and he sent me, no, it was on the air. I think it was, I can't remember. But anyway, he said that he was guarding this gold. He said it was there. He didn't know who it belonged to, and he didn't know anything about tungsten bars coated with gold. I knew about it, but and this happened about a year ago.
Yeah, roughly a year ago.
But we don't know the extent because there's no audit, and we can't tell.
Congressman Paul wants to audit them, and they refuse to be audited. So that tells me, just like Mr. Obama, they got something to hide, Bob.
That's right.
So we have no money, Bob. There is no money around. We have nothing but toilet paper passing as money and people deluding themselves every day and legally stealing stuff from the merchants.
And that's why you have to have all your investable assets in gold and silver coins and shares.
Other than that, thank you both for your time. God bless.
God bless. And with that said, Command Sergeant Major, retired, United States Army, Command Sergeant Major, Fort Knox, Kentucky, comes in and says, that was me. And yes, we did go through and weigh the gold, but we never tested it. That's a good observation, Mr. Chapman. I never was ordered. I was just stood there and watched the gold weighed by bar and placed from one pallet to another, one bar at a time, and weighed on a scale.
And the tungsten weighs the same almost as gold.
And we never ran any tests to see if it was tungsten or solid gold. Great observation. And yes, it was 14 months ago. I want to wish you and your wife a well-deserved vacation and retirement, and thank you, sir, for doing your due diligence to warn the military around the world of the financial. Sergeant Major, retired, United States Army, 33 years, faithfully a citizen for the Constitution.
That's wonderful.
Thank you, Sergeant Major. And we'll move over to the hyperinflation question. Mr. Chapman, the reality is that hyperinflation is being reported as being set in motion and driven by a deteriorating physical situation. In fact, the significance of the economy is weakening, and deflation is a precursor to hyperinflation. Do you feel that too many analysts believe that there has to be some economic demand or some form of consumption to stimulate this inflation or this hyperinflation? And what is your feelings about this and the printing of money by the Obama administration to pay for the stimulus packages with paper?
Well, the Obama administration is totally profligate, even worse than the last two presidencies of Mr. Bush, which were awful. And but yet he's not creating this inflationary problem. The Federal Reserve is. They're the only ones who can create money out of nothing, like a magician. And they just make a bookkeeping entry, and ipso facto, there's the money. And they're the ones, and they're the only ones who can cause inflation or hyperinflation. And our government helps them along by lying about the inflation rate, the CPI. And they do that for a number of reasons. Number one, they don't want the people to know what's going on. And number two, there's a thing called COLA, cost of living. And this is what's used as an index to increase or decrease, it's never decreased, but to increase the payout of people because of inflation who have Social Security, pension plans, raises, all this sort of thing. And so they're screwing all the retirees is what they're doing.